One Tuesday afternoon, the universe decided it was time to close a chapter. Naomi was at a high-end mall in Chicago, not for herself, but to help a friend to pick out a birthday gift. She was dressed simply a clean, well-fitting pair of jeans and a cashmere sweater Caleb had bought her. She looked comfortable, not wealthy, and that's when she heard it. A voice that felt like a phantom limb, an ache she hadn't felt in years. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Naomi caught her. Derek Williams stood there, 10 feet away, flanked by a younger woman dripping in designer labels. He hadn't changed much, same slicked back hair, same overconfident smirk. His suit was expensive, but it fit him like a rental. He looked at Naomi's simple outfit, and then at his companion, as if to say, asterisk. See, this is what I escaped. Asterisk Derek, Naomi said, her voice even. No tremor, no fear. Just acknowledgement. He laughed, a loud, performative sound that made heads turn. Still slumming it, I see. I figured you'd be managing a dollar store by now. Or did you finally find some other poor soul to latch onto? The woman beside him giggled. It was a practiced, hollow sound. Naomi felt a flicker of pity for her, not anger. She knew that laugh. It was the sound of someone trying to earn their keep. I'm doing just fine, Derek, Naomi replied, her tone calm. Fine, he scoffed, stepping closer. He was projecting, playing to the small audience of shoppers who had paused to watch. Honey, fine is what you say when you're barely making rent. I'm doing great. VP of Acquisitions now. Just closed a 7-figure deal. He gestured to the woman beside him. This is Tiffany, my fiancée. Tiffany flashed a massive diamond ring, her smile tight. Naomi just nodded politely. Congratulations. This seemed to infuriate Derek more than an argument would have. Her composure was a language he no longer understood. He wanted a reaction. He needed to prove he had won. You know, I did you a favor, he said, his voice dropping to a mock confidential tone, though it was still loud enough for everyone to hear. Cutting you loose was the best decision I ever made. I needed a partner, not a project. Naomi's friend, who had been watching from a few feet away, started to step forward, but Naomi gave a slight shake of her head. She had this, "You're right, Derek," she said, and the sincerity in her voice made him pause. You did do me a favor. Before he could process that, a new voice cut through the air. Naomi, honey, everything okay here? Caleb Rhodes walked up, placing a gentle hand on the small of Naomi's back. He wasn't dressed like a billionaire. He wore a simple Henley and dark jeans, but he moved with an unmistakable, quiet authority. He glanced at Derek, his expression unreadable, then looked back at his wife with genuine concern. Derek's eyes widened slightly. He recognized Caleb, not from business magazines. Caleb avoided those. He recognized him from the one place that mattered to a man like Derek. The silent, top-tier investment circles he desperately wanted to break into. Caleb Rhodes was a ghost, a legend. People said he could make or break a company with a single phone call. Caleb, Derek stammered, his bravado vanishing like smoke. Mr. Rhodes, I didn't realize you knew. He gestured awkwardly at Naomi. Caleb's gaze turned cold. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Her name is Naomi Rhodes. She's my wife. The air crackled. Derek's face went pale. His fiancée, Tiffany, looked from Naomi to Caleb, the diamond on her finger suddenly looking a lot less impressive. She was doing the math, and it wasn't adding up in her favor. Your wife, Derek repeated, the words catching in his throat. He looked at Naomi's simple clothes, her calm demeanor, and then at the man who held more power in his little finger than Derek would ever accumulate in his lifetime. The pieces were clicking into place, but the picture they formed was a nightmare for him. We were just catching up, Derek said quickly, trying to salvage the situation. Old friends. Naomi finally spoke, her voice still quiet, but now it carried an undeniable weight. We're not friends, Derek. She looked him directly in the eye. You called me dead weight. You left me when I was pregnant. The last part hung in the air. Caleb's hand tightened protectively on Naomi's waist. His expression darkened. Derek looked like he'd been punched. I didn't know, he stuttered. You didn't ask, Naomi corrected him. The quiet finality of her words was more devastating than any shout could have been. Caleb then turned his full attention to Derek. Still didn't they raise? His voice, Derry Williams, VP of Acquisitions. At Sterling Corp, you've been trying to get a meeting with my firm for 6 months. Derek's blood ran cold. He had been sending emails, making calls, trying every connection he had to get in front of Caleb Rhodes's people. His entire career trajectory depended on it. Caleb continued, his voice dangerously soft. Your company's recent acquisitions. They're leveraged against debt from 3 smaller banks, one of which my firm happens to be the majority shareholder of. It's funny how these things work out. Derek looked like he was going to be sick. He understood the implication immediately. With a single command, Caleb could call in that debt, create a cascade of defaults, and crater not just Derek's career, but the entire company he worked for. Tiffany, sensing the catastrophic shift in power, slowly took a step away from Derek. Her allegiance was to status, and Derek's had just evaporated. I think you've said enough, Caleb said, his tone leaving no room for argument. He looked at Tiffany, and you might want to get that ring appraised. A man who values people based on their net worth rarely invests in anything authentic. With that, he guided Naomi away, his arm firmly around her. They didn't look back. They didn't need to. Derek stood frozen in the middle of the mall, the murmurs of the onlookers buzzing in his ears. He had built his life on the idea that power was loud, that success had to be seen. And in a few quiet sentences, he had been dismantled by a man who wielded real power like a whisper. All in defense of the woman Derek had thrown away like trash. He looked down at his own hands, then at his fiancée, who was now glaring at him with contempt. For the first time, Derek Williams understood what it felt like to be worthless. He had tried to humiliate his past, only to have it show him that his future was now a blank page, and he had no one to blame but himself. 5 years after abandoning her, Derek saw Naomi again. It was at the Oakbrook Center Mall, a place where money flowed as freely as champagne at a gala. She was standing near a high-end jewelry store, clutching a small, unassuming paper bag. For a moment, Derek almost didn't recognize her. The Naomi he remembered was always chasing the next trend, draped in designer labels. This woman looked plain. Plain, no flashy clothes, no brand new phone. She seemed out of place, like a sparrow that had wandered into a peacock enclosure. His pride stirred before his memory even fully clicked into place. A smirk stretched across his face. Well, look at you, he laughed, his voice dripping with condescension. Still pretending you belong in places you can't afford. Naomi turned, her movements calm and measured. There was no flicker of surprise on her face. She recognized him instantly. The years hadn't been as kind to him. He was a little heavier, his hairline was receding, and his expensive suit couldn't quite hide the air of desperation clinging to him. He didn't give her a chance to speak. The words tumbled out of him, a torrent of disdain he'd been storing up for years. Let me guess, he sneered, hoping to run into some rich guy who'll fall for your act. You should be careful. Security around here doesn't really like loitering. As he spoke, she bent down to pick up the paper bag she had placed on the floor beside her. In a moment of pure spite, Derek nudged the bag with the toe of his polished leather shoe. It skidded a few inches across the marble floor. Don't touch my shoes with your cheap bag, he said, his voice loud enough for Pesos B to hear. A few people glanced over, their faces a mixture of curiosity and discomfort, but no one stepped in. It was a private drama, and they were just the audience. Naomi straightened up slowly, her expression unreadable. She looked him directly in the eye, and for the first time, Derek felt a sliver of unease. He expected tears, anger, a dramatic scene. Instead, her voice was quiet and even, I hope you find peace, Derek. The words were so unexpected, so completely out of sync with his attack, that he could only react with a harsh, barking laugh.
Peace?
He scoffed. Peace doesn't pay the rent. Darling, money those. Money those. He felt a surge of victory. He had put her back in her place. Feeling taller, more powerful, he turned and walked away without a backward glance. The echo of his own laughter ringing in his ears. He was sure he had ruined her day. Maybe even her week. But Derek didn't know the full story. He couldn't have. Naomi wasn't at the mall to shop for herself or to hunt for a wealthy benefactor. She was simply picking up a watch she had dropped off for a custom engraving. It was a gift, a very special gift for a man named Caleb. She wasn't loitering. She was waiting for the final touches to be put on a symbol of her new life, the life she had built for herself, far away from the wreckage Derek had left behind. 2 months passed. Derek had all but forgotten the encounter at the mall, filing it away as a satisfying, if minor victory. Then, an email landed in his inbox. The subject line was Stark Rhodes Holdings Annual Leadership Gala. It was an invitation, black tie, private venue, and 2 words that made his blood run cold. Mandatory attendance. Derek's company had been acquired a few months back in a swift, aggressive takeover. The details were murky, and the new parent company had remained a faceless entity, a name on a letterhead. He had just assumed it was his good luck, a random corporate shuffle that had worked in his favor. Now, he was being summoned to meet his new masters. The night of the gala arrived. Derek, dressed in his finest tuxedo, felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. The venue was an old, sprawling estate, the kind of place where history was made and fortunes were decided. As he walked through the grand entrance, he saw them. The titans of the industry. The power players he had only read about in business journals. He felt small, an imposter. He grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and tried to look like he belonged. He made small talk, networked, and tried to figure out who the new CEO of Rhodes Holdings was. Whispers floated through the crowd, but no one seemed to have a clear answer. Then, the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage at the front of the grand ballroom. A man walked to the podium and cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. It is my great honor to introduce the architect of our recent successes, the visionary leader and new chairman of Rhodes Holdings. A drum roll, please. Derek held his breath, along with everyone else in the room. The announcer's voice boomed. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Caleb Rhodes. A man stepped into the spotlight, tall, confident, with an easy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Derek didn't recognize him. He was just another face in the sea of wealth and power. Caleb spoke for a few minutes, his voice calm and commanding. He talked about vision, innovation, and the future of the company. A standard corporate fare. Then, his tone shifted. I also want to take a moment to thank the person who is the true foundation of all this success. My partner, my inspiration, and the brilliant mind who first identified the potential in our latest acquisition. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. Please welcome the vice chairwoman of Rhodes Holdings, my wife, Naomi. The spotlight swung to the side of the stage, and there she was. She stepped forward, and the entire room seemed to hold its collective breath. This was not the plain woman from the mall. This was Naomi, but transformed. She wore a gown that shimmered like liquid starlight. Her hair was styled elegantly, and a necklace of breathtaking diamonds graced her neck. She looked like a queen surveying her kingdom. She moved to the podium and stood beside Caleb, who took her hand and raised it to his lips. Derek felt the air leave his lungs. His glass slipped from his numb fingers and shattered on the floor, but he barely heard it. Naomi's eyes scanned the crowd, and for a terrifying second, they landed directly on him. There was no anger in her gaze, no triumph, just a cool, distant acknowledgement, as if she were looking at a piece of furniture. She began to speak, her voice clear and strong, resonating through the silent ballroom. She spoke of strategy, of market analysis, of a 5-year plan for global expansion. The same woman Derek had mocked for loitering in a mall was now outlining the future of his career, of his entire company. The rest of the evening was a blur for Derek. He watched as the most powerful people in the city flocked to Naomi, hanging on her every word. He saw the genuine respect in their eyes, the admiration. He watched Caleb look at her with a love so profound it was almost tangible. He remembered his own cruel words at the mall. Peace doesn't pay rent. He had been so wrong. Naomi had found something far better than peace. She had found power. The next morning, an email from HR was waiting for him. Subject: corporate restructuring. Role reassessment. His position was being reevaluated. He was summoned to a meeting on the top floor. As he stepped out of the elevator, the first person he saw was Naomi. She was standing by the window, looking out over the city. She turned as he approached, her expression neutral. "Derek?" she said, her voice even. "Thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." The man who had once laughed at her was now standing before her. His future held entirely in her hands. The game had changed, and he had already lost. The night of the gala, the grand ballroom was electric, humming with the conversations of the city's most powerful people. CEOs mingled with investors, and board members whispered strategies. This was the peak of the corporate world, a gathering of titans. Then, the great double doors swung open. Naomi entered. Her arrival wasn't loud or dramatic. No grand announcement was made, yet a hush fell over the room. One by one, conversations faltered and then stopped completely. Every eye turned to her. She wore elegance, like a second skin. A simple gown that spoke of quiet confidence, not extravagant wealth. On her arm was Caleb Rhodes, a man whose name was synonymous with innovation and integrity. The moment the room registered his presence beside her, a wave of shock, then respect, rippled through the crowd. People began to rise from their seats, a spontaneous standing ovation for the couple. Across the room, Derek watched, and it felt as if all the air had been sucked from his lungs. This was the woman he had tried to destroy, the one he had cast aside and left with nothing. And here she was, not just surviving, but commanding the attention of the very world he so desperately wanted to conquer. Caleb Rhodes guided Naomi to the front table before ascending the few steps to the stage. He tapped a microphone, the soft sound echoing in the silent hall. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice calm, yet carrying an undeniable authority. "Tonight, we celebrate growth. But I'm not just talking about growth in profit margins or market share. We are here to celebrate growth in character." He paused, letting his words sink in, his gaze sweeping across the sea of faces before him. The anticipation in the room was palpable. "My wife," Caleb continued, his voice softening slightly as he looked toward Naomi, "once lost everything. She lost her home, her security, and her reputation, all because someone mistook her kindness for weakness." The silence in the room became heavy, charged with unspoken questions and dawning realizations. Derek felt a cold sweat form on his brow. He knew Caleb was talking about him. "She never sought revenge," Caleb said, his voice firm again. "She didn't waste her energy on tearing someone else down. Instead, she built a new life, a new career, a new empire. She built value where there had been only wreckage." Caleb turned his body fully toward Naomi, a look of profound admiration on his face. "She taught me, and she taught everyone who knows her, that dignity is the loudest and most definitive form of justice." The moment he finished, the room erupted. The applause wasn't just polite. It was a thundering, heartfelt roar of approval and respect for the woman who had risen from the ashes. Derek was frozen in his seat, the sound of the clapping like a drumbeat of his own failure. He had wanted to erase her, but instead, he had become an insignificant footnote in her triumphant story. Later that evening, after the speeches and the accolades, Naomi moved through the crowd with grace. People flocked to her, wanting to shake her hand, to offer their congratulations. Derek tried to make himself small, to blend into the wallpaper, but it was no use. He saw her approaching, and his heart hammered against his ribs. He braced for the confrontation, the cutting remark, the public humiliation he was sure was coming. But it never did. Naomi stopped in front of him, her expression unreadable. She didn't say a word about the past. She simply reached into her small clutch and pulled out a business card. She held it out to him. "If you ever find yourself needing help to rebuild," she said, her voice even and calm, "you should call Tat." She turned and walked away, rejoining her husband without a backward glance. Derek stared at the card in his hand. It wasn't an olive branch. It was a statement. It told him that she was so far above him now that his past actions were irrelevant. She wasn't his enemy. She was a force of nature, and he was just a man caught in the aftershock. The months that followed were a slow, agonizing collapse for Derek. As Naomi's star ascended, his plummeted. Deals fell through. Investors pulled out. His reputation, once his most valuable asset, was now tarnished beyond repair. His allies in the business world, who had once eagerly answered his calls, now treated him like a pariah. The company he had built by stepping on others, including Naomi, crumbled beneath his feet. Soon, his job was gone. Then, his savings. The friends who had surrounded him in his days of glory vanished like smoke. He was utterly alone. One evening, sitting in the gloom of his small, rented apartment, he turned on the news, and there she was. Naomi, she was being interviewed about the launch of her new charitable foundation, a massive endeavor dedicated to providing resources for displaced spouses and single parents who had lost everything. The reporter asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "This is such a specific and personal cause. Why this?" Naomi smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. "Because," she said, her voice filled with empathy, "someone once tried to break me when I was already at my lowest point. I was lucky. I survived. I want to make sure that others who find themselves in that terrifying position don't have to survive it alone." Her words were not spoken with bitterness or anger, but with a profound sense of purpose. Derek reached for the remote and turned off the TV. The screen went black, reflecting his own empty expression. And in that moment of darkness and silence, he finally understood. He had been waiting for revenge, expecting some grand, dramatic act of retribution to come for him, but it never did. Naomi hadn't wasted a single thought on getting even. What came for him was not revenge. It was consequences. It was the natural, inevitable result of his own actions. He had built his life on a foundation of cruelty and betrayal, and it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. Naomi never looked back. She didn't need to. She was too busy building a better future, not just for herself, but for countless others. She wasn't haunted by the past or driven by a need for vengeance. She was propelled forward by her own strength, her own compassion, and her own unshakable dignity. Justice had already arrived, not as a storm of her making, but as the quiet, undeniable dawn of her own success. The ultimate victory wasn't in seeing him fall. It was in rising so high that he was no longer even in her line of sight. And so, our story comes to a close. A tale not of revenge, but of resilience. It shows that the greatest power isn't in destroying those who wronged us, but in building a life so full and meaningful that their actions become insignificant. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the deeper truths of the human experience. Until next time, remember that your greatest strength lies in your own character.